Coming up on Tech News Weekly, it's the beginning of new MacBook Pros and Airs and the end of the MacBook Plain, whatever you want to call it. Also, Nintendo has a light version of the Switch that may be a little too light on features for some, and Amazon's Prime Day is about to hit in full effect. Are you ready to spend? You should be. That's up next on Tech News Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Tech News Weekly, episode 90, recorded Thursday, July 11th, 2019. This episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by LastPass, the #1 most preferred password manager. Just remember your master password, and LastPass remembers the rest. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more. Hello and welcome to Tech News Weekly. This is the show where we talk to people making and breaking the tech news. I'm Jason Howell, and we've got some awesome interviews today, so let's dive right in. Apple this week unveiled a refresh of its MacBook lineup, and it's not necessarily the introduction of new models that has today's guest all riled up, but the elimination of an older model. Welcome to the show, Ray Wong from Mashable. How are you doing, Ray?
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing great.
It's awesome to get you back here. You were on All About Android a few weeks ago. And it's just great to get you on another show. So I appreciate your time. So before we get to the gadget graveyard, let's spend a little time walking through the MacBook maternity ward. See what I did there? What did Apple unveil for its next generation of laptops to begin with?
So this week we got brand new MacBook Air. So last updated in the fall of 2018, and now they are cheaper, $100 cheaper, starting at $1,099, $999 if you have a student discount, and they're a little faster and better graphics. But most importantly, I guess, is the display. It is now a True Tone display, so that means that the screen adapts to the lighting kind of conditions within your environment. So healthy, minor spec bump, but welcome nonetheless. Apple also announced a new 13-inch entry-level MacBook Pro. So the previous MacBook Escape, as it was dubbed, the one with the function row, function keys, is now gone, and all of the 13-inch MacBook Pros have the touch bar, and that still starts at $1,299, and small minor spec bumps, so also quad-core processor. Healthy performance increase all around.
Nice. Now, what you chose to wrote more extensively about in the article that we have here is about the 12-inch MacBook, not the Pro, just the MacBook. It was first launched in 2015, and I remember when it came out. Then it was kind of a big deal because it was very different, right? There was a single USB port. It was a lot lighter. Did you happen to like the 2015 model when it was first introduced, or did it feel kind of limiting?
I was not a fan of the 12-inch MacBook. I was pretty harsh on it. Single USB-C port. The world just wasn't ready for it. It weighs only 2 pounds, but the trade-offs just weren't worth it to me. The keyboard, which was the first generation Butterfly keyboard, it was way too flat, and the processor was vastly underpowered. So it's fanless design, really neat innovations, but I think Apple went a little bit too far. So yeah, I didn't like it when it was announced and released in 2015.
And it was basically just the fact that it was limiting on certain factors, right? Because I remember the single USB port was the biggest point. One of the biggest points of consternation was the fact that, okay, well, if I want to charge it at the same time as I want to do other things with that port, like you're really limited to a single thing unless you have a breakout dongle. That's, dongle life. It was kind of a big thing. Then it was like, well, I guess we're living the dongle life if we're going with this laptop. Was that kind of one of your major considerations then?
Yeah, absolutely. Just having to carry another accessory adapter was a real pain in the butt. And again, back then the world just wasn't ready for USB-C yet. I mean, it just come out, was just getting adopted, and Apple just kind of lunged forward and said, hey, we're just going to go to the extreme and make this thing as thin as possible. And I think they made some trade-offs that maybe weren't the wisest.
Yeah, but you've gotten used to it, gotten accustomed to some of those trade-offs that you mentioned.
Right.
How were you able to adapt around this device? What are you going to miss?
So mainly I bought this machine, even though I kind of trashed it at first, because I need something really light for covering big events like CES, MWC, or IFA. And I just didn't want to carry so much weight. And 2 pounds is really optimal. Remember, back then, the iPad Pro didn't exist yet. And it also didn't have iOS 13 with all these kind of awesome multitasking features, multi-windows. And so this was kind of like the perfect writing or blogging machine. And so, the flat keyboard, I started adapting to that. Yes, it was super flat, but I learned to type more lightly. And you really don't need to press very hard on the keys in order to get them to register. I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make with the butterfly keyboard. They pound on it, and so it is very loud. And you really don't need to tap as hard. A very light touch actually works really well. And obviously I still need to use a dongle for things like connecting a memory card for dumping photos from my camera. But I also start shooting a lot more with my iPhone, and I think that mainly worked because the iPhone got so good. The camera got so much better, and I was able to take photos with kind of the smart HDR feature, and even in challenging low light situations, and then kind of airdrop them over to my MacBook instead of having to dump them through a dongle or memory card, and then quickly tweet them or post them in our CMS. So yeah, there is a little bit of a learning curve and adapt. You kind of have to adapt to how the machine is, but I think I was able to do so successfully.
Yeah. And then you mentioned in your article, actually in the title, that this is an opportunity for Apple to hit reset on its laptops, which is interesting to say, given that, maybe it had some downsides in the beginning, but you grew to love it over time. What do you mean by that? Do you think that this is an opportunity for Apple to take what works here and maybe what didn't work, leave that behind, but
right,
what works, integrate it into the new laptops? Do you see them doing that in the laptops that they just introduced a couple of days ago?
So we definitely see Apple kind of making strides to better their laptops. I don't know whether the Touch Bar is a success or not. For most people, I would say it's a failure because I don't see a lot of people using the Touch Bar. On the MacBook Air, you see that they have a Touch ID integrated into the power button, but no Touch Bar. And you also see that the keyboard has improved over the last couple of generations. So the latest version has their new 3rd gen, I guess, second update on that. And it is quieter, and it's supposed to be, and I can't verify this right now because I haven't tested it, be more responsive, reliable, and not break down from dust and debris as easily. And so I think what we're seeing now is, now that Johnny Ive has kind of left the building, or will be leaving the building by the end of the year, I think, Apple's industrial designers have a chance to kind of walk back on some of the choices that he may have been a key part of. So things like, emphasizing thinness and lightness over everything else. I think it would be great to see, a slightly thicker laptop. We're not saying I'm not saying that it needs to be significantly thicker than the current laptops right now, a millimeter or two. I don't think anybody will really notice that. And maybe add back some of the features like MagSafe or a memory card slot on at least maybe the Pros. I look back at this because the original MacBook Air was so innovative, but it lacked a lot of the things that people needed. And then on the 2nd generation of the MacBook Air, Apple kind of improved on that. Now, with Johnny Ive gone, I think this opens up an opportunity for Apple to kind of introduce new keyboards that are more reliable, because the reputation is somewhat tarnished right now. Maybe, walk back on some of the features like Force Touch on the trackpad. I don't know anybody who uses that. Improve the FaceTime camera. Maybe add Face ID. There's so many things that may have been in Johnny's DNA that may not be in the other members of the team. So I'm hoping Apple will improve and design new laptops soon that take all of these kind of shortcomings and improve on them.
Yeah, I'm hoping for that too. My wife has one of the newer ones with the tacky loud keyboard, which, I mean, it's a good tip that you give as far as like typing a little bit softly. You don't have to slam down on it, but man, anytime I end up having to use her laptop, it's really hard not to. And for whatever reason, it just kind of annoys me, and not in the same way that old school clicky keyboards, which are very satisfying, weren't annoying to me. This one, for whatever reason, just feels so shallow. And then the touch bar, like you said, touch bar seems like a really cool innovation, but I just never see anyone using it. It seems kind of like, oh yeah, that's really neat, but it's so outside of the like physical key paradigm that it breaks your brain a little bit to have to look down to find the thing and then move back into the keyboard. So I don't know if that's helping anyone.
Exactly. So Apple's been so against like touchscreens, whereas, the Surface has embraced it. Google's embraced it on their Pixelbook. And I love using a touchscreen on a clamshell device. I would love to see a touchscreen on a MacBook, because like every single time I come back to my MacBook, I'm constantly like maybe just swiping, and I'm like, oh, wait, that doesn't work here, And I think the whole Gorilla Arm thing doesn't really apply anymore, No. I think that may have been a fear, but you're not really using touchscreen all the time, especially if it's not a convertible. So I think there's a big opportunity here.
I completely agree with that. The whole Gorilla Arm thing. Like, I'm using a Pixelbook right now, and it does have a touch screen, and a lot of the Chromebooks do. And touch is nice to have. It's absolutely nice to have. I find myself, using it, but it's not something that you rely on. So it's nice when it's there.
Right.
If the MacBooks could integrate that, I don't think it's the kind of thing where suddenly it, turns people into all touch, on their MacBook sort of users. But it's nice to have, to be able to scroll around and everything. Anyways, hopefully this means even more innovation. It'll be interesting to see where the Iveless generation of Apple products takes us as far as the MacBooks are concerned. Ray Wang, Mashable.com. Ray, where can people follow you online?
You can follow me on Twitter at RayWongy, RayWongy, or Instagram at Sour Lemons.
Right on, Ray. Thank you so much for hopping on today. We really appreciate it.
All right, thanks for having me.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Up next, Nintendo switches things up with something light. But first, I got a face palm from Burke over there. Yes, score. First, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by LastPass. I love LastPass. Literally, I use LastPass every single day. It is the #1 most preferred password manager. Just remember your master password. That's the only thing that you have to remember, and LastPass will remember the rest. LastPass now has available a new business lineup. These 3 innovative products bring the control IT needs and the convenience users expect. LastPass Enterprise now includes single sign-on technology with more than 1,200 pre-integrated apps, in addition to its existing market-leading password management capabilities. LastPass Enterprise manages access for every entry point in a single solution, apps that are covered by SSO and those that are not. LastPass MFA goes beyond standard two-factor authentication through the use of biometrics and factors such as geolocation. LastPass MFA ensures only the right users are accessing the right data at the right time without any added complexity. LastPass Identity is a combination of LastPass Enterprise and LastPass MFA, provides a holistic view of end user activity from a single dashboard. It covers passwords, authentication, all apps in use. From single sign-on and password management to adaptive authentication, LastPass Identity gives granular control to IT and frictionless access to users. We use LastPass Enterprise here at TWiT. We are all users. We're excited about these new products. Like I said, I use LastPass religiously. I've got all my passwords in there. I feel secure. I've especially knowing that every password on all of my sites is going to be generated differently and uniquely, and I don't have to worry about remembering all of those permutations and combinations of letters, numbers, and symbols. LastPass does it. I just remember that master password. LastPass is bridging the gap between access and authentication to simply and securely manage identity. So you can join over 13.5 million people who have signed up for LastPass and are loving and trusting it just as much as I do. Visit lastpass.com/twit. You'll find out how they can help you. That's lastpass.com/twit. We thank LastPass for their support. When it's time to chat about gaming news, one man can be summoned by a shining S in the sky. That man is Sam Miskovich from Ars Technica. Welcome back, Sam.
Is it a bird or is it a plane? I don't see anything. I just see a lot of board games.
I'm curious to know what your theme song would sound like, but we don't have to cover that here. Just noodle on that.
Bass, definitely.
So we have a few gaming stories that have happened over the past couple of days. Thought we'd rope you on to talk about them, but we got to start off with Nintendo. This week, Nintendo unveiled the new Switch Lite, a portable-only version of its wildly popular Switch console. Maybe talk a little bit about some of the sacrifices that Nintendo made to help bring the price down on this unit.
Well, hold on. First, there needs to be a dramatic... I don't know if that's taking. I'm not very good at snapping, but every Switch ad begins with a snap.
Oh, that's right.
But this was a huge snap on Nintendo's part in terms of coming out and saying, a lot of the things that make the Nintendo Switch special, we're dumping in the trash in order to get the price down and the size down. The Nintendo Switch Lite is coming this fall. It's going to be $199 MSRP as opposed to the $299 MSRP for the standard Nintendo Switch. What you get is a smaller screen, I want to say around 5 inches as opposed to the 6 of the original one. 5.5 inches diagonally. It's going to be the same resolution. It's ultimately going to be a slightly sharper looking screen. It's going to be a little bit lighter, down to 0.61 pounds from 0.88. It's going to be slightly shorter at 3.6 inches instead of 4 inches. A little bit thinner, or width-wise, 8.2 inches as opposed to 9.4. 8.2 as opposed to 9.4. It's a lot of numbers, but there's a lot of little changes. It's not dramatically smaller because it still looks like the Switch. It's still this kind of widescreen thing you have to hold in your hands, but also the Joy-Cons don't pop off. You can't take the little controllers and hold them in your hand while putting the Switch up in a dock or setting up on a table. In fact, it's only a portable player. It's essentially the Nintendo Switch Game Boy because it doesn't come with a way to plug it into a TV. And if you already own a Nintendo Switch dock, it won't work. You can't plug it in and beam it to the television. So it's a strange shrinking of the system, but we all know why. And within seconds of them announcing this, they said, oh, by the way, we've got a Pokemon edition of this Nintendo Switch Lite coming at around the same time, which is going to be colored with the new Pokemon game's colors, because Nintendo's putting out a Pokemon system. Every single time Nintendo has a quote-unquote giant Pokemon release, a new generation, as it were, there's always some sort of crazy hardware to follow. Usually it's a sort of cosmetic change, but sometimes it's a brand new model of a DS or a Game Boy or Game Boy Advance. And that's what we have here, a Nintendo Switch that can be sold as a Game Boy for children who like Pokemon.
Now, as you said, they're obviously getting rid of a lot of features here. Many would argue that those features are what make the Switch so special. But then you've got a great game library, right? Nintendo Switch has fantastic games. Is that enough to make something like this make sense?
I think they absolutely can sell it this way. It's simply Nintendo admitting by sheer market forces that the special twists of the Nintendo Switch, particularly the Joy-Con, are essentially not going to be supported. There's an IR camera at the bottom of one of the Joy-Cons. If you grab your Nintendo Switch and look at the bottom of the right-hand controller, you'll see a little black sliver. And the only game that's really taken advantage of that is the Nintendo Labo kit, where you fold things into cardboard and then slot Joy-Cons in and create little cardboard toys that interact with your TV. That won't work with this new Switch because you can't pop the Joy-Cons off. Also, the HD rumble that's attached to both of the Joy-Cons, where you hold it in your hand and you feel very specific location sensitive vibrations, that's going to be gone. So any game that would want to, do that sort of weird thing, there's one really creepy Japanese game I can name. I'm not going to talk about it, but it totally is out there and uses the Joy-Cons vibration in messed up ways. That won't work with this. So I think it's them saying, oh yeah, people just want to play a game without flicking their wrists or without doing any of the weird Wii-like waggling. They just want joystick and buttons. In fact, the Switch Lite has an upgrade in some ways. It has a D-pad on the left-hand side. Before, both Joy-Cons, the left and right on a normal Switch, have like a weird button arrangement so that whichever way you flip it, it kind of becomes a Super Nintendo controller. And that's them kind of saying, we don't really need that. People don't care as much about that popping it off, setting it up. Remember all those rooftop commercials where someone would bring one Switch and then everyone would party? This Switch Lite is being demonstrated with everybody just happening to have a Switch in their bag and hanging out at the skate park or the climbing gym and then busting out their own personal devices. And that to me is sort of a strange way of Nintendo saying, yeah, the whole one Switch creates a party wherever you go. That's gone with the Switch Lite.
Yep, of course it is. When is this going to be released? Is this a few months away?
Yeah, September 29th. And it's coming in many colors because Nintendo. Yellow, turquoise, and gray. I don't know why they come out with the gray ones. I guess you want to slap it into a case and just give up on any coloration on the outside. And then additionally, there will be special edition Pokemon colors when that new Pokemon game comes out. And I forget what date that is. Oh, November 8th. That's when that one comes out.
Go.
So, but again, the market says, hey, listen, people want a cheaper one. They don't necessarily want the dock. This is an option. My biggest question is how durable it is. Is this going to be kid friendly? The Wii U to me is still one of the best handheld screen on device things that a kid can play with and bonk and destroy. The Switch, on the other hand, has been not so. It's a little more precious. So I'd like to see the Switch Lite at least be a little more durable so that if you do buy this for a younger kid who likes Pokemon, that they're in for, they can bonk it around and smack it around and it doesn't break. But that touchscreen's pretty precious, so we'll have to see.
Yep. All right, shifting gears, the information had an exclusive that has sources saying that Facebook is looking to lock up big-name titles and exclusive deals for Oculus VR. Assassin's Creed, Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell are just two titles mentioned. Does this focus on exclusives of well-known franchises in particular? Does that surprise you?
That doesn't surprise me at all. I feel like I saw that report and I just yawned because I'm like, yeah, every big company in VR is trying to get a name attached that you'll really care about. But we've seen this play out before where, for example, there was a John Wick cinematic experience that came out alongside that first film, and it didn't set the VR world on fire. We've got the Dance Central, which is a known entity from the old Kinect days. It was by the people who made Rock Band and Guitar Hero. That came out on the new Oculus Quest. That didn't set the charts on fire. I think, honestly, it's going to need to be a really good VR game in order to get people to strap a thing on their head. There's been a Marvel license thing from Oculus, at least one, if not multiple. Just because there's a license doesn't mean the attached software is any good. And VR absolutely adds sort of a hurdle to that. Just you need more people to own these in general for those sort of names to pop. Whether a Splinter Cell game could be good in VR, I think it could, because stealth, I've seen cool stealth ideas before. There's Budget Cuts is already out on HTC Vive and Oculus Rift, and that one is a really fun stealthing around in VR. You're physically dodging and leaning around and peering and being stealthy, and Splinter Cell could lend itself well to that. Assassin's Creed is just giant, but we don't know. We've seen spin-offs of Assassin's Creed before. Like there was one for the PlayStation Vita, and it was fine. It didn't make the PlayStation Vita necessarily do well. Name recognition is a pretty big deal, and Oculus wants people to just walk into a store and go, oh, I've heard of these games. Because when you go onto Steam and look at its, or even Oculus's sort of store and look, it's a lot of stuff you've never heard of. It's brand new IP without cool, clever mascots, without names you're familiar with. But if I were a big VR company, I'd just go straight to EA and say, we need Madden VR. That, to me, something at the very top, Madden, FIFA, that's the kind of name recognition I think they need to go for, because not only do you have that known entity, you also have American sports, and those drive sales. So if anyone from Oculus or another VR company is listening, get EA Sports. Just do it. Figure it out. Just get the name and go from there. People will pay for no reason for that stuff.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that we haven't seen something like that already happen. That seems like a no-brainer, like a huge reason for people to actually get into VR. Like I would almost expect to see that on like PlayStation. Find Sony make some sort of an exclusive. Just
maybe
to sell.
Someday, maybe with someday. PlayStation 7. We'll never know.
Cool. We could be looking into the future here. There's still a lot we don't know about Google's cloud-based Stadia. I feel like we say this every time there's news. Their online gaming platform. There was a change to the online FAQ that seems to shed at least a sliver of light on game ownership. What does it say?
Yeah, everyone's question about something like a cloud gaming service is, what do I own a game, and will I own a game forever? And there was a FAQ that went up right before the 4th of July that we noticed at the beginning of this week. And one of the questions in it is, what happens to a game I bought if the publisher stops supporting Stadia in the future? Can I still play the game? Essentially, Google is already admitting that publishers who make games may just bail randomly, which happens on Xbox Live, PlayStation Network, Steam, and other digital services. So Google just said yes. And they add, once you purchase the game, you own the right to play it. Now, notice that phrasing, own the right to play it. Not the same as owning the game. They're giving you a license. But there's wiggle room after that. That could turn that yes into a no. The phrasing that is outside of unforeseen circumstances, Stadia will aim to keep any previously purchased title available for gameplay. We know that unforeseen circumstances is not the phrase I'd use. The circumstances are foreseen. Let's say you're playing a game on Google Stadia, meaning you open up your web browser and you just pay for the game and boom, it's on your web browser. You don't have to buy a console. That sales premise is pretty awesome. But what if that cloud-served game where it's being streamed from a server to your computer depends on some third-party cloud infrastructure? Maybe Google is running their own thing like Google Cool, which would be my made-up name of a Google service that makes video games on the cloud run better. And Google Cool just shuts down, kind of the same way that Google shuts down a lot of services over the past, 5-7 years. What happens then? Does the game just go kaput? You don't get to download a copy for your home computer. It's depending on that cloud. So Google's still giving itself wiggle room to say your game could go kaput. But at least what it's saying is, if a game is delisted, if there's some reason that a publisher's like, we're done, we're not doing Stadia anymore because Sony gave us a bunch of money, their contracts are still ensuring that so long as Stadia exists, you'll be able to play the game on Stadia. So that's relatively good news.
Yeah, I mean, I have the PS4 at home. I've actually bought a decent amount of games through the PlayStation Store online, not physical, and yet it's never occurred to me that doing it that way is convenient, but then the long tail on that is that potentially and probably most definitely at some point I lose access to those games completely because they only exist online. And what you're talking about really reminds me of the Ouya. I know you remember the Ouya. That very nice. That old Android gaming system. The servers just shut down on that on June 25th. And so what's that?
With the Ouya, at least, you've still got those files downloaded. You could always, at any point, unplug Ouya and have your locally downloaded files work. That's the same with Xbox One, PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, with the exception of like online modes like Fortnite Battle Royale. What you have on those systems will still play when you unplug it in 2027, if the battery still lives and things like that. But that's definitely not the case with Stadia.
No.
So one good news piece, at least, is there's a weird split between Stadia and Stadia Pro. The Stadia Base, excuse me. Base is the free version. Pro is the $10 a month version that comes with random game demos and downloads and freebies. And let's say you pay for the Pro part and you play a game on there, and then you stop paying that $10 a month. In good news, Stadia will let you keep those save files and attach them later if you decide to play again. And that compares to Nintendo Switch Online, which has a cloud save feature that expires after 6 months of non-payment. Meaning, if you pay for Nintendo Switch Online and then you stop and then you come back 8 months later, your save files in the cloud will be gone. So Stadia is trying to say, hey, listen, we got your cloud stuff saved for however long it takes you to come back and pay us money.
That's nice.
That is at least a relatively nice thing that they confirm for people depending on the cloud and maybe changing their mind on paying for those monthly deals.
Yeah, that's positive. Sam Miskovich, I don't know how to summon you other than to shine an S in the sky, but guaranteed it's going to be sometime soon. Well, I can tell you can always
find me over at SamRed on Twitter or over at arstechnica.com. I just have a story today about a weird new Call of Duty thing that I actually liked, and I think tomorrow my Lion King film review will be up.
Oh.
And, fur looks beautiful. The movie is exactly the same.
Okay.
That's the shortest version.
All right, that's a good short synopsis.
That comes out next week, but they let us see the movie extra early, so there you go.
So lucky. A lot of jealous kids out there, or parents who saw it when they were kids. Anyways, thank you, Sam. We'll talk to you soon.
See you soon.
All right, so because Christmas just isn't enough reason to spend gobs of money on steeply discounted stuff, Amazon is returning in full force with its Prime Day in a matter of a few days. Dan Ackerman from CNET is keeping tabs on the deals and what's going on with Amazon during Prime Days and joins us now. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Hey there, Jason. What's going on?
Not a whole lot. It's good to see you, buddy. How have you been?
Good to see you. I just watched the end of the last segment, and I was actually just trying to pick out all the different board games behind Sam's head, because I have a gigantic stack of board games in my bookcase behind me, too.
Well, if you lived in Seattle, then you could probably have game day with Sam. But I don't think that you do. You live in New York, right?
I have to keep everything down to things that fit on a human-sized apartment table.
Well, it's good to have you here, man. First of all, obviously Prime Day is, right around the corner. Amazon is making sure everybody knows about it. Specifically, they've actually been releasing some deals ahead of Prime Day. What are some of the more interesting things you've seen them release so far?
I mean, the secret is a lot of stuff goes on sale on Amazon all the time, and that includes when it's not even anywhere close to Prime Day, and the days and weeks and months before. They always have a lot of those early deals on things like the Echo speakers and other Amazon-branded products. Frankly, you can get a Dot now for $25, which is the new standard price, even though technically it's $50. I don't know of any human being who's ever paid $50 for an Amazon Echo Dot in the last 2 or 3 years. So those are already down. Somebody pointed out there was a really good Instant Pot for $50, which is about half price, although I haven't used mine in like a year. So I think that's one of those purchases where you go, oh, that's a great idea. And then you go, it's not instant enough for me. Ring doorbell, there was a good deal on that. There's something now where if you spend $10 at Whole Foods, you can get a $10 Prime Day Amazon store credit. But at the same time, nothing is leaping out at me as, jump in there right now. Don't wait for next week. Just go get this. Unless you really need some more dots. I know people who can't give them away.
Yeah, right. Now, is Amazon letting any information out as far as like what exactly, teasing ahead as far as Prime Day is concerned, things that you can look forward to, like as a doorbuster would be in the holidays, like something to get excited about?
It's more general, and it's one of those early deals that just kind of sneak out and occur periodically. They're going to start on Monday, and they even kept the exact date secret until a few weeks ago, really. They make you guess and go, when is Prime Day going to be? I got to plan my whole summer around this. So they love, just like Apple does, they love that whole, building up the mystery around it kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazon says that some of the biggest deals are actually going to take place on devices like the Prime Dot that you can get for dirt cheap right now. How exactly is that going to work? Is someone going to have to say, hey, I'm not going to say the full name, so I don't want to fire off everyone's devices, but hey, give me some deals, and they show up, or how's that work?
We need a code word so that we online or on TV or something say that magic word about that assistant. We don't trigger everybody.
Yes.
I've done that many times. We should call her like Alexandra or something.
There we go. I like that.
Yeah. So we know what we're talking about. I have to say, whenever someone mentions this voice ordering thing, I just have to close my eyes, shake my head a little bit like this. They've been trying to get this to be a thing for years. It's not a thing. Nobody wants to order anything through their Echo and through Alexandria or Dra, whatever I said it was. I guess they have some special prices on special things, but the specificity that you must have, order with, to me is intimidating. And you like to look at the specs on the page and double check the price and make sure everything's correct and that it's coming from the right place to the right place and read the reviews. You can't do any of that when you shout out, hey, order me some Tupperware. And you go, oh, it's an extra 5% off. That's great. But they've been trying to make voice ordering happen forever. So is everybody else. Everyone's very hot on this. Yeah. I can't say normal people are ever going to want this. It is the best example I've seen in years of a solution in search of a problem. We don't have trouble buying things. We're good at that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't know if I've ever bought anything with just my my voice to my Google Home. I think you can buy something with your Google Home.
In a deli, you buy something with your voice. Give me a sandwich. This is what I want. That's voice ordering. That works.
Yeah, but at least you've got a menu in front of you, which is something that I don't have with my Google Home at home. Amazon isn't the only merchant offering discounts, of course, because Prime Day has become such a big deal that everybody else has to get in on the fun as well. Where else can these deals be found, and what can we expect?
Everyone has really started climbing on board the bandwagon, doing the copycat thing. I think Amazon never thought in its wildest dreams they would inspire this huge change in consumer behavior where, number one, their audience for this grows, by huge amounts, 50% every year. And then all of a sudden, Target and Walmart and Best Buy and all these other stores are having suspiciously similar sales at just around the same time. They don't call it Prime Day. Obviously, it's, like Black Friday in July, summer something deal somethings. So everyone is doing it at the same time. And it was a great bit of psychological engineering on Amazon's part. They got people to say there's some random, half week in July when it's kind of like Black Friday all over again. So kudos to them, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, people do notice when Prime Day is around the corner. People are aware enough, at least those in technology and online and everything, aware enough that they're actually going to save some money if they shop at Prime Day. What's the best way that people can stay connected to deals? Like I use an app called Slick Deals, so I know that on Slick Deals I'm probably gonna see posts here and there that are like, hey, this is there, and that'll alert me to some of the better deals. But what are some other ways that people can stay tuned to it?
That's a good one. I like Camel, which a lot of other people do, where if there's something you want, you list it, you connect the listing to it, and you even say, this is the price I'm looking for, and it pops up and tells you or sends you an email when it comes down to that price. So that's always cool. And of course, not just CNET, but everybody else on the planet is going to be publishing their best deals they find, pouring through everything on Amazon. Obviously, I think ours is the best, but I'm sure there's a lot of other good ones too. But that points out a big problem with this, which is Amazon, for all the things it does right, does not do discoverability very well.
Yeah.
Every year I look at this Prime thing and I go, I just spend 45 minutes just clicking around and I can't find anything that's really that interesting. And there's supposed to be like 2 million items on sale. I don't know how to look for them. I don't know how to find them. So discoverability remains a huge problem. There's no solution for that I've discovered so far. But there's a lot of human, for all the AI and all of the, algorithms going out and trying to predict behavior and pull stuff out. A lot of it is humans just clicking around and saying, oh, that's a good deal on an Instant Pot. Let me write that down and tweet about it or put it in a blog post. And then, you see your friends on social media, tweeting about it and go, oh, I'm going to click through to that and get that too.
Yeah.
Just make sure you have your little affiliate code at the end.
Right, yes. And also, if you're going to get an Instant Pot, just remember earlier in this interview, you might not use it after a year. Now, is there any way for non-Prime members to be involved with Prime Day?
That's the key Prime part of the Prime Day thing, because you have to be an Amazon Prime member, which has gone up in price over the years. I think it started at maybe $69 or $79, then it was $99, now it's $119. And it's not just for the discounted shipping, it's for all the Prime Video and some music and book stuff. The video is probably their biggest part of it in terms of being a Netflix-style service with original programming. But you can always get there's like a 30-day free trial you can get. So if you really want to be that guy or girl, right before Prime Day, sign up for the free trial, do all your Prime Day shopping. If you find something great, if not, that's great too. Then just cancel right after.
That actually would work. Did you check out the concert last night? I know you're a Swiftie. You're a Taylor Swift fan.
You know what? I was so excited. I said, I have to save this for later so I can watch it when I'm calm. Because if I watch it live, forget about it. It's over.
Amazon.
So I'm going to get around to it later this week.
All right, good. For those who didn't know, Amazon held a concert with a bunch of very notable current stars, including Taylor Swift. So apparently you could watch that after the fact if you like.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. I will say she was the only name I recognized from the list, proving how old I am.
Yeah.
The other ones just seem like a bunch of initials stacked together. And I'm like, I guess I've heard of Taylor Swift, but...
Well, I hate to say...
Michael McDonald.
I don't hate to say it. I love to say that I have two daughters, but I hate to say that through them, I knew at least two others on that list other than Taylor Swift. So, yes, apparently through them, I'm keeping current, and I'm not sure I like what I see. And finally, this has nothing to do with Amazon Day, Prime Day, but I saw that you wrote an article about some hands-on time with something we talked about earlier in the show. We discussed the Apple MacBook announcement. You got some time with the new Air and the new Pro. What did you think with your hands-on?
Yeah, I certainly got a chance to get these new units right away. The new MacBook Air, which adds that True Tone screen and drops $100, and the new Pro, which more importantly adds the Touch Bar, which people like to sort of hate-love to the cheapest version, the $12.99 version. But much more importantly, it goes from a dual-core 7th gen Intel processor to a quad-core 8th gen. And this is one of the only shows where I feel like I can say that and people will know what I'm talking about, which is fantastic. So we just, very quickly, right out of the box, we just ran some benchmarks and compared it to the most recent non-Touch Bar 13-inch MacBook Pro that we had, which was from like 2017 or 2018. So it's not apples to apples, but it's pretty close. And you could see, if you look at the performance charts, quad core is a lot better than the dual core. Surprise, surprise. But the fact that you get it for the same $12.99, great. That's a great back to school deal. Good job, Apple.
Solid. Dan Ackerman, always great to see you, man. I've missed you. Where do you want people to find all the work that you're doing online?
Obviously, me and the crew over at CNET are doing our thing, and on Twitter, I'm just plain old Dan Ackerman.
Right on. That makes too much sense. Dan, thank you so much, and have fun on Prime Day. Tell me what you buy. All right. See ya.
Instant Pots.
Not another one.
Yes, more.
All right. See you later. Tech News Weekly records live every Thursday starting at 11 a.m. Pacific. We record at twit.tv/live if you want to watch me interview some awesome people live, or you can go to the show page, twit.tv/TNW. If you want to email us, that's tnw@twit.tv. You can also follow us on the socials, Twitter, Instagram, all over the place. But if you want to find me, you'll find me on Twitter. You can tweet at me, and I welcome your tweets at Jason Howell. Thanks to everyone who helps us do this show each and every week. We've got Jeff, John, and Burke. And thanks to you for watching another episode of Tech News Weekly. Appreciate it. We'll see you next week on another episode. Bye, everybody.